Guys, welcome back to Drawing Conversation. I am your dedicated nerd, host, and artist, Danny Fisher, and I am so pumped to bring you the story of the Thundercats. But before we get started, I just want to thank all my subscribers. Your support means so much to me. Now, let's get started. Thunder! Thunder! Thundercats! Ho! That's right, guys. We are talking about the Thundercats. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be a two-part episode, and I'm so excited to bring all the heroes of Thundercats. In part two, I'm going to bring you all the villains of the Thundercats. And guys, again, this is so very exciting. Thundercats as a whole really affected me growing up. I love the morals, loved the story, loved everything about it, the artwork, the voiceovers. It was just so ahead of its time. But enough talk, let's fight! The Thundercats are from the planet of Panthera. It's home to a species of cat-like humanoids that, really, they just look awesome. Now, their world is dying. I promise I'm not obsessed with dying planets. It's just a cool plot device. Looking at you, Superman. Anyway, the Thundercats leave their world in search of a new home, and on the way they're attacked by evil mutants looking to steal the Sword of Omens. And I promise, more on the mutants in episode 2. It's gonna be fantastic. Now, the Sword of Omens is a lot like Excalibur in the sense that whoever wields it can become the ruler of the Thundercats, or the ruler of Panthera. It also happens to be the most overpowered sword ever. Just my humble opinion. Now here's why I think it's so overpowered. It can shoot lightning bolt, augment its size, and no matter how big, it can always be wielded with one hand. Never dulls. It can see danger in far off places. It can use sight beyond sight. Sorry. Had a little nerd out for a moment. My inner nerd, just a little bit of a cartwheel. I'm sorry you had to see that. But we're not done yet. It can project force fields. It can fly to the wielder when called upon. It can project images from the past. And of course, it can summon the Thundercats whenever Lion-O's in danger. Which is like all the time, because he's just a kid. Now, if you didn't want a Sword of Omens for your very own, then we can't be friends. But let's move on. During the attack by the mutants, they are forced to crash land on Third Earth. Doesn't that sound just so ominous? Third Earth. Hey, more on that on part 2. We're gonna get to it. A funny thing happens to Lion-O on the journey from Panthera. You know, when he leaves Panthera, he is just a child, but during the attack, his stasis chamber is damaged, and his body grows to adulthood on Swall. Also noteworthy, and I didn't find room to incorporate Jaga into this piece, but Jaga is the Thundercats' elder, kind of a spiritual guide. And sadly, his stasis chamber was destroyed by the attack. But somehow is able to astral project in every other episode to give Lion-O advice. Don't get me wrong, it was awesome, kind of an Obi-Wan experience whenever Lion-O needed it. Now on Third Earth, the Thundercats awaken to find a very strange planet. Sometimes it looks like a jungle paradise, sometimes it looks something like right out of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, but it doesn't take long for the Thundercats to realize, hey, we're not alone, and have to constantly battle the forces of evil on Third Earth to survive. Let's dive into the individual Thundercats. Lion-O, to me, always felt kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He didn't have any special or unique attributes, kind of a bumbling kid, but I think that's why I liked the character. He was always trying to go it alone, to make his own way, not needing adults to help him. It was just so hilarious to see this child in this adult body. But you know what? Lino never had an ounce of quit. And I think that's why we all like Lino. He would get over his head, but there was no quit. Now, my absolute favorite character of the Thundercats was Panthera. Yup, the nunchuck-wielding, mechanic, fix anything, build anything, strong guy, tough guy on the team. And for the record, he was why I picked up my first pair of nunchucks. And many bruises later, I fashioned myself a rather proficient practitioner, if I do say so myself. But anyway, I loved Panthera. I had no idea that as I got older, I would also share his hairline. Anyway, watching Thundercats as a kid, I always hated Tigra because he was always the adult, the father figure of the team. He was also kind of the I told you so kind of guy on the team. I don't know, maybe it was because I was raised by my mom, alone, not having a dad. I thought he was just lame. But now that I'm a dad myself, I kind of like the character. He's a tiger, for crying out loud, the largest of the cat family, and he can become completely invisible whenever he wants. He also has the mind power, and with that, he can actually project images into anyone's mind. He's also an amazing statistician. He knows each of the Thundercats' strengths and weaknesses. He knows where and when to deploy them. In my opinion, he was the real leader of the team. Now let's move on to Chitara. Growing up, watching this show as a kid, I had the biggest crush on Chitara. I'm just being honest here. But I also saw her always as the voice of reason. She always had everything under control and just very level-headed. Hey, Chitara was obviously super fast, able to reach speeds, and I've seen anywhere from 120 to 200 miles per hour, but just like a cheetah, she can only do this for short bursts. And again, I've found anywhere from 1 to 2 miles is her maximum distance. But still, can you imagine moving that fast, even on the low end, 120 miles an hour for a mile? That's ridiculous, but super cool. We're not done though. She also had the sixth sense. She could see visions of the future, and kind of depending on how far in the future, she would sometimes have to take up to days to recover. But she also had a really good, an amazing spidey sense. I don't know any other way to describe it, but she could have this ability that bordered on precognition. She could almost know when danger was about to occur. Her favorite weapon was the expandable bow staff. And it was so cool because she could use that to reach and just smack opponents in the distance, or get out of a ravine or a crevasse or just a big pit. And really, I didn't even know this, but as I'm drawing this, I'm reflecting back on my childhood. This show was really why I started into martial arts. This was just so cool to me as a kid. I wanted to learn more. Now that brings us next to Wyly Kitt and Wyly Cat. They're siblings and they're always in trouble. Now Wyly Kitt is the younger sister and she's always getting in trouble. She's always leading the charge into danger. While you have Wyly Cat, who is way more cautious. He was always kind of held back, a little more reserved. And I remember them always running around on these really cool space boards, just like running everywhere, planning traps and setting, tricks on everyone. And I thought, man, why doesn't everybody have these space boards? I just thought they were so cool, but whatever. They also had these really cool capsules or grenades. It kind of varied from episode to episode. And they could throw smoke bombs and shrapnel, and I always drew them, and I always wanted to draw them with a little bit more of an aggressive, kind of foreboding, serious take on how they looked. So I just felt, they were just too young in the show, and really going against these mutants, which all the mutants just look over the top. But I wanted to give them, a little bit more aggressive look. And I hope I did that here. I really liked it. Please leave a comment below and tell me what you think for sure. Now finally we come to Snarf. I could never figure out exactly what Snarf was. It kind of weirded me out that he had like human hands as hands and feet. I don't know, for a kid I just wasn't a fan of that. But you know, in the end he always came through, like he always did the right thing. Even though he would say he's too scared to go off, hey, he always did the right thing. Also for the record, his name is Osbert. That's right, Snarf is the name of his species, and holy cow, Batman, there are a lot of Snarfs out there if you watch the show. For me, the Thundercats was such a fun ride every Saturday morning. Something that I really looked forward to, not just because the artwork was head and shoulders above anything else on television, but also it had an amazing overarching story, and they added so much lore and backstory and characters over the history of the show. It was always so rich. And I loved that whether you were from Earth, or Thundera, or Third Earth, good always overcame evil. And that's why I loved the Thundercats. So guys, there you have it. My take on the origins of the Thundercats, one of my favorite cartoons. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that like, turn on your notifications, and I hope to talk to you soon. Focused?
Yep, focused.
Or something like that.